All right, so I want us to switch gears completely and focus on our explainer tonight. So I'm sure you have gone to malls and buildings and you're asked to leave your ID at the gate with the security officers, even as you go up, and you'll collect your ID on the way out. And some of you are wondering, do they have the right to do that? Well, they actually do. And that is based on what is known as the Private Security Regulation Act of 2016. Now, it's a big thing that talks about regulating the entire private security services industry, but I'll zero into what is important. So let's start off with Section 46(1) that actually gives them the power to arrest. So it's got some really broad regulations for them. So take a look at this. Private security guards in this country have the power to arrest in what is known as a citizen's arrest. Okay, so it says that a private security service provider may arrest a person who commits an offense within the premises of jurisdiction of that guard, and they are to then immediately hand over the person to the nearest police station. And there is more. If you take a look at Section 47 of that, it then gives them the power to conduct a search. A private security service provider, as is written here, manning a building for any property may search a person, get this, on entry or exit of that building without a warrant. Now, I'll give a rider to all of these, which is given at the end of every section. We will get to that in just a moment, because these powers are not without limitation. Now, here is the one that gets everybody. Now, security guards may request you to identify yourself before you enter the building, register your time of entrance or exit, and then go on to retain temporarily the identification document of such a person. Now, all of these, by the way, that rider we're talking about says that the Cabinet Secretary shall make recommendations to provide for the responsible exercise of the powers that have been given here. It is important to note that this act also goes on to say very clearly that they are not to act as police officers. It says here, for the avoidance of doubt, nothing contained in this part shall be construed as conferring upon a private security service provider the powers of a police officer or member of a disciplined force. Now, this law was passed in the year 2016, but as happens with all of these laws, the regulations we've talked about were then drafted earlier this year, about 3 years later, on the 13th of June, and then gazetted on the 5th of July. Now, they have 6 months. All of these private security companies have 6 months to comply with those regulations. What are some of those regulations? Well, for one, they want registration and training and certification of every single security officer in the country. After that training and certification, they will each be given a number, and that number will identify them, their identity, and of course the work that they do. And this is a database that will be open to the Inspector General of Police and the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Interior. Now, it also requires that these companies get registered with the Private Security Regulatory Authority. And this is to ensure that there is order within this sector. Now, what I am informed by those well known in this sector and who are working in this sector is that until those regulations, until these companies comply with those regulations and then get certified and licensed by the Private Security Regulatory Authority, can they continue to do this? So, just in case you encounter a private security officer and they're doing this, don't think it's out of nowhere. The law actually provides for it. Will they be able to come up with or comply with all of these regulations by January 2020? Remember, we're talking about over 500,000 security guards. Those are the ones who are in formal companies, with over 2,400 security companies in the country today. Now, of course, the number of security guards gets up to about 700,000. You know, when you have your Masai who will take a look at your property and make sure he guards it. So will those 500,000 security guards be able to comply with this? Will those 2,400 companies comply with this law to make it fully operational? That is, of course, what we wait to see. But folks, it is legal and it is in the law. That's my explainer tonight.